Hey guys, I'm Carver,
I'm Lisa.
and welcome to Content with Confidence. We wanted to share with you guys a class where we could teach you how to create content that is quick, effective, and easy so that we're not taking more time out of your day than we need for it.
Obviously, in the current climate, um, you all know what it is. I don't need to spell it out for you. And we are living in Corona times. As Carver said, we want to help you to do stuff that is just going to be quick and easy. Obviously, we have a million and one things to think about at the moment. So realistically, you don't want to be in a situation where your content is taking you loads of time. You want your process to be as quick and efficient as possible and as creative as possible. So that is where we come in.
Okay, so that being said, I think we're going to start off with a little bit of social strategy just to get the ball rolling. I'm going to show you guys a few of my favorite tools to make pocket content, really. I early in my career as a hairstylist, well, I shouldn't say early, I was about 6 years in. And I decided that I wanted to focus more on content and branding and all that sort of stuff. And I went out and I got the cameras and the tripods and the lights and all that, and all I ended up realizing was that I am making more and more work for myself. And as Lisa said, we are in the time of Corona, and we can't even plan our strategies a week or two, 3, 4 weeks in advance like we used to. We used to be able to lay it out and plan it, and everybody's like, strategize and do all this stuff and plan your content, and that is great. That is a great system when we don't know, or it's a little bit different when we know what tomorrow is going to bring. Whereas right now, we need to be so flexible and be able to pivot with our content that we really wanted to show you how to do that. So let us start with a bit of strategy.
Okay, so the first thing to say is, like Carver just said, normally how I would work as a strategist is I would plan a month, 2 months, even 3 months or longer if I can in advance. We are not living in those times anymore. We literally don't know, the situation is evolving by the hour. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So the first thing I want to say is, in terms of when you are thinking about content, the most important thing I find is procrastination. And I am as guilty of this as the next person. I have worked in social media for over 10 years and I still panic when it comes to putting out a piece of content. I still worry, is it going to get engagement? Is it going to get likes? Is it going to get comments? And I think in the current climate, the first thing I would say is you just have to throw that procrastination out the window and just do it. I don't think, we don't have the luxury of time as much as we used to. So I think that, realistically speaking, whatever fear it is you have about posting, whatever it is you're procrastinating about, you just have to get rid of that and just, take Nike's advice and just do it. I think, we all need to be, I know you're laughing, Carl, but it's true. We are in the reality of the situation at the moment is a lot of people are losing their jobs. We have to have a plan B. We have to have some kind of, your side hustle is probably going to become your main hustle depending on what it is. So that whole anxiety you have around posting, I get it and I totally understand it, but you just have to get rid of it. You just have to chuck it out the window and think, right, okay, this is about survival now. So you need to do what you need to do in order to survive. Because that's what we're all doing. We're all in survival mode at the moment. So
There's
that would
just
be
no
the
time.
first thing. Yeah.
There's no time for the analysis paralysis anymore.
No,
Like,
there isn't.
how many of us are like sitting on top of piles and piles of content that's ready to go? And me,
Me.
like, like I can imagine that every single one of you has in your phone roll unused content. And that actually might be to your benefit, because if the world hasn't seen it yet, that's content that you can use as long as it's corona appropriate, right? So we can't rely on stuff that was front facing with no masks before, but we can definitely use shots from behind or something, or even explaining it to people that this was pre-corona, put a timestamp on it.
Yeah, because or another a trick I've been using for some clients is, the whole Throwback Thursday. So I've been using that to post like historic content, not content that's already been used. So in some cases, yes, but in most cases, it's old content that was captured pre-corona or pre-pandemic. And I'm using it on a Thursday, and I'm making sure I'm including that, Throwback Thursday or throwback to when I throw back to when we did this. I throw back to when, we could see our customers' smiles. We may not be able to see them now, but we know they're still there. It's that sort of thing. So it's like, and it's being able to think of that kind of stuff. But yeah, for me, the procrastination thing, it just needs to be gone. It's like you just have to do it. You just have to, no matter how scared you are or nervous you are, you just have to post. And if, like I always say to people, one of the tips I always give people is to have a dummy account, and post it on there, see how it looks, but just don't spend too much time kind of getting anxious over it or picking over it. You've got to now just think, right, just post it. Don't sit around procrastinate. Don't sit around worrying like I do. I sit there for 20 minutes before I post something, looking at it, scrutinizing it. Have I put a comma there? Have I missed a full stop? Have I spelt receive wrong?
I mean, edit properly.
Of course, of course. But don't fall into that trap of over editing, where it actually goes beyond over editing, and you're just like, oh, you're almost finding things or finding reasons not to post.
Do you I personally, I call it client eyes. Like, I'm always trying to look at my content from client eyes. Like,
Yes.
like am I PPEing properly? Am I, putting out the right commentary, the right context, the right verbiage, really?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not what you think you said, it's what the other person thinks you said.
Yeah. And I always, like you said, when it comes to the whole client eyes piece, I always try to think, okay, if I was the customer of a salon, for example, what would I want to see? I would want to see PPE. I would want to see them in masks. I would want to see them in visors. Not because I'm paranoid as such, but obviously I don't want to catch this virus. But I also, as you know, Carver, I live with my mum, who is like much older than me, is more prone to this virus than I am. So for me, it's not just about me, it's about her, and it's about who else I come into contact with. So if I was the customer of a salon, I would want to see that they have the appropriate measures in place and they have already thought about this. If I went on their social media and I didn't see that, I'm not so sure that I would be as confident in using their services as I would be if I could clearly see from their content that they were following all the relevant procedures. So I think that's the thing for me, is like, I always try to put myself in the shoes of the end user or the customer, if you like, and think, right, what would I want to see from a brand as a customer?
Well, I'll say, even from personal experience recently, like, I just moved cities, so it's like I had to find a new barber, right? And I actually, when I was going through, like, there's a couple people in town I know, fortunately, so I was really able to just ask them, like, point blank, like, hey, what are your standards? What's your PPE practice like all this stuff. We don't always have that opportunity, because if people don't see it, they're not going to approach you. Like, there was a barber in town here that I was really looking at, and I thought his work was really beautiful, and, like, I would like to go get my hair cut there, but I didn't see a mask in sight on his social. Whether or not he was only taking photos of his clients after the fact and asked them to remove the mask for that, I, as a consumer, don't know that, because I haven't seen that step. So I think it's really important, as much as we don't want to have them in our feeds and stuff, it is important to include those things, and also to make sure not to get documented not having those things.
Yeah. And as well, you want to be, from a wider context and a wider point of view, you want to be seen to be doing that, because at the end of the day, you're protecting others. It's not just about protecting yourself, it's about protecting others. And at the moment, that's what we should be doing. We should be wearing masks. We should be taking all the necessary precautions to protect ourselves and others. So as a business, you want to be seen to be doing that. You don't want to be seen to be, because, and I'm not saying it would be intentional, I'm sure it wouldn't be in most cases, but if you're posting content that doesn't convey that, you're not kind of servicing the greater good. You're not helping yourself, but you're not servicing that greater good of protecting others as well. So for me, it's just a case of, being smart about what you're posting, and also showing that actually you care about what happens to everyone else, because everyone else is your customer. So if your customers get sick, you're not going to have any anyway. So you want to be seen to be conveying that message, and you should be. We should all be wearing a mask. We should all be doing these things. We should all be washing our hands and social distancing. We should be doing them anyway. So our content should just be reiterating what we're already doing. If you are in a service, if you're in the service industry.
Any business.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day,
any business.
At the end of the day, every business is the service industry of someone else. It's just
of some sort. Yeah.
that not all are physical. I'm wondering if maybe like, and this is just me throwing words out there, but like we're so concerned about brand when I'm thinking that we need to start focusing on legacy, because it's not just like your brand is like what people feel about you, right? But I feel like it's so far past that because we need to make sure that our brands are so good and that we've been so good during this time that if there is something like another lockdown or something, that our brand and our legacy of our brand will survive that and
Yeah.
actually carry us through to the next.
I think that's really key. I think brand survival or the survival of your business is really key. And I think for me that is where your content comes in. Because what I thought was really interesting was that when we were in actually the grip of lockdown and everyone had to be at home, everyone had to basically self-isolate and quarantine, I was watching very closely what brands were doing in terms of longevity. So it's like, what are they posting now that's going to help them in 3 months' time, 6 months' time? Now, a lot of businesses initially, a lot of people were panic posting, and whilst I don't agree with that, under these current circumstances, I understood it. But my only thing with panic posting was that's not going to serve you long term.
Well, it's
So
not
it's
planned.
no, it's like, okay, it's fine if you want to panic post, okay, do that. I can't
But
stop you.
don't
I'm not
post a
advising it.
post.
But then you need to make sure that you have more planned and considered content. And I felt that some businesses didn't do that. They were so worried about about their business surviving, which I get, that they sometimes were I just felt like they were just posting and everybody was doing Instagram lives. Everyone, like literally everybody. Myself included, I did a few, and then I was like, yeah, this is not really for me. I feel like I'm jumping on a bit of a bandwagon, and I don't really want to do that. But I
There has
do
to be a
think that
purpose.
but I do think you've got a very valid point there about thinking about the longevity of your brand and how the content that you are posting now, what will that say about you in 6 months' time or a year's time? How did your company communicate during this period? I think that will be an interesting thing to look back on a year, 2 year, 3 years from now.
I think it'll also be it's I think we need to switch mindset a little bit because pandemic is something you get out of, right? And we don't know where that marker is going to be or how
Mm,
far in the future or if at all. Like
yeah,
this could just be similar to a flu,
yeah,
right? Like obviously we are very aware that this is not a flu and all those, don't even get me Facebook started. But like uh, but like we don't know if it's going to be like a cold or a flu that is recurring now that it exists in our
mm,
world, right? So it's like, how do we create content and a plan moving forward? Because it's not just your content anymore, it's your entire business strategy. And if you don't
yeah,
have that locked down as to like how you're going to move forward, how you're going to adapt and pivot and shift and all that, and then how you're actually still going to fulfill the need of your brand, not from yourself, but your need in the community, your need with the people that purchase from you, right? Like
yeah.
they need these things. That's why they're coming to you.
Mm.
So, like, how do we, us, the branding brainstorm right now, now help people just build structure? Like, if you were building the structure for your future plan, Lisa, where would you start personally?
Um, where would I start? I would start with I would look at what I'm offering now. So I would look at the services or products that I'm offering now, and I would be thinking, right, does that does that meet a particular need? Does that solution answer a problem? Because right now we are in problem mode. We are in a world of problems, to be perfectly frank. Does my business have a solution that is the answer to those problems? That is the first thing I would think. If it didn't, I would take some time to look at actually coming up with solutions to the problems. Like I think for at the moment, if we look at the branding brainstorm specifically, I think that we do offer solutions to problems in terms of that whole digital piece. So a lot of companies now are having a lot of companies that are physical businesses are having to think about what their business looks like from an online perspective, what their business looks like from a social media perspective, not necessarily things that they would have had to think about to that amount of detail before, whereas now They may not have a choice. And I think that's where people like ourselves come and say, look, okay, right, you're now having to think about what your business looks like potentially online, because that may be the only way for your business to survive. And that's where people like us can come in and we can help. And for me, that's one of the things that is really important for me, and that I really love about, us having the Branding Brainstorm, is that we can actually help people. you know but the reality is, there are a lot of people out there right now, Carver, as you and I have discussed many times, that will just be jumping on a bandwagon to get people's money. And don't get me wrong, we all need to earn money, we all need to survive. You and I are no different. But, a classic example, all those fake companies at the beginning of lockdown that were selling dodgy masks and stuff like that, and trading off people's fear and people's insecurities and people's anxiety and stress about this whole situation. There were so many companies, I saw reported so many online, who were selling fake drugs that they claim would cure COVID. Masks.
Look at how many things that have been made, just the masks that are
appalling.
not
Yeah,
people
it's
are making gimmicks.
It's absolutely appalling that there are people out there that are trading on people's fear, that are trading on people's anxiety. And I think the good thing about us and other companies like us, not just us, is that we can actually help people. We can sit here and say, right, okay, Carver, this is what we think that you should be doing. Maybe you should try out these tactics. Maybe you should try out this. Maybe you should, instead of planning your content for the next month, try planning it for the next 7 days, because we don't know. We know Boris is making an announcement tomorrow. We don't know what that announcement is going to be. You don't want to plan a month's worth of content and then have to shelve it all because it's not, it's not appropriate. So, we can offer those insights to people, and we can really help people with their business. If you are new to the digital sphere and you don't know where to start, we can help you. And I think that for me would be where I'd start. It's if my business does not offer solutions to the current problems that people are facing, then I need to go away and develop solutions that are the answers to those problems, or at least aim to try and solve those problems in some way. So that's where I would start.
And if you feel like people are at that place where they're kind of okay, well, I literally only offer in-person things, would you tell them to start planning and adapting to figure out what else you can offer?
Most definitely. I was saying to you before, I was having a conversation with a friend, and she works in retail, and she is in a situation at the moment where the company she works for, they are going to have to close down some stores. So there's a strong likelihood that she could lose her job, which obviously is terrible. And we've seen it happening a lot, and unfortunately more is going to happen. More of that, we're going to see more of that. And my advice or my thoughts for her were that, okay, right, you need to now think about pivoting. You now need to think about your own agility and flexibility in terms of what are your other skills. So you physically, if that was me, I would physically sit down. I mean, I actually did this at the beginning of lockdown. I sat down with a notebook and with a piece of paper, and I made a list of all the skills I had. In the event that, I couldn't harness the skills I've got, which obviously I can because they're digital, but I sat down and I made a list of all the skills I've got, all the things that I could possibly do to help, keep myself afloat, to help my business survive whilst we were whilst we were on full lockdown. And that's what my advice to her was, that you really need to think about what other skills you have and what else that you can offer. And you really need to think about the digital piece. You really need to think about, okay, how can you take your retail experience and turn that into some kind of online offering? Because the reality is, if you lose your job in retail, a lot of retail companies, as you know, Carver, have been negatively impacted by this pandemic. Mm-hmm. So the reality is that she may not get another retail job. So then what does that look like? She's worked in retail her whole life, so she doesn't really know any different. So then what does that next step look like for her? I think the only way you can know that is to actually sit down and list and really think about what is your skill set? Because everybody has more skills than their day job. We all do. We might just because we don't use it in a professional setting does not mean it's not a skill. And I think that's the mistake a lot of people make. They think, well, I don't use that skill in a job, so
you don't use it in
not
that
a skill.
job.
It is a skill. You've just not applied it to what you consider to be a professional setting. That doesn't mean it's not a skill. And I think that's the advice I gave her, and that's the advice I would give anyone. I would say from a and maybe from a slightly biased perspective, is that if you have some level of digital ability, I would really start to explore that now.
And tell people.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely.
It's
I
like,
would start to explore that now. And that is where, that's where social media comes in. That's where your Instagrams and your Facebooks and your TikToks and your Snapchats and your Twitter, that's where that, because you need to tell people if you have a skill and you have the ability to help people, you need to get that information out there. It's like the other day, I was talking to my friend about how I manage my finances, because many years ago I wasn't great with finances. I got myself into a bit of problems. I sorted them all out, and now I'm in a situation where I don't have those same problems. No, I'm not rich. I'm not as far from it as you could possibly be, but I'm a lot better. I manage my money a lot better. And I went through this whole process of what I did with her, and she turned around and said to me, "You should teach people that." I'm like, "Well, no, because I'm not." I did that thing of, because I don't use it in an everyday, in a professional setting, I just use it for my own personal, development and management of my life. I don't consider it. She's like, "Well, no, actually, because you've actually," and then she came back a few days later and says, "Based on what you said to me, I'm now doing this, this, and this. I've managed to save this." I was like, "Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that, but good for you." But again, it's that thing of, oh, actually, she's actually been the second person to say that to me, whereas I would never think to myself, well, I could advise people on how to manage their money. It's like, well, I wasn't very good at maths at school. I'm still not the greatest at it now. So to me, I'm just like, that's not my skill set. But the fact that two people have said that to me, it's like, oh, well, maybe that's something to think about. But
but your
that's what I would
skill
say
could
to
be
other
the
people.
teaching of it, right? Your
Yeah.
skill could not necessarily be the math and the accounting and all that, but I think that your skill set comes across in that you take what you know and you translate it into a way that people that don't know those things can understand it. And
Yeah.
what makes you great in the branding brainstorm. It's like you take all these points and then boil it down to like, okay, this is a digestible piece for most people,
Yeah.
right? So it's like I would agree with her. I think you're a great teacher. You may not think that you're a math specialist.
I'm definitely not a math specialist. Most definitely not a math. As you know full well I'm not a math specialist, because you always have to work stuff out for me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But yeah, I think it's that thing of what people really need to think about now are what does their skill set look like, and how can they get that message out there. And that is where social media comes in. And I think one of the points that I made in terms of the whole content with confidence piece is, have an idea. Once you've made a plan, once you have sat down and you've looked at your skill set and all of this, and you have an idea of what you want to talk about, start talking about it. Don't procrastinate. Don't wait. Start talking about it. Test different things. Because ultimately, everything you put out, whether we realize it or not, is a test. Nobody really knows how a piece of content is going to perform until it's published.
And I think a lot of people forget that you're allowed to be wrong.
Yeah, of course
Like
you
you're
are.
allowed to be
That's how
wrong,
you. That's how you can't ever be right if you've never been wrong. That
right?
just does not make any
Like
sense.
I think people get so caught on not making the mistake. Like I mean, even like okay, let's look at the branding brainstorm, right? We've been around for 6 months now, however long pandemic was or has been, and we've already rebranded, right? Like, and that's to me, that's not a mistake. That's just a new direction,
Yeah.
right? And I think people mistake new direction with actual mistakes in branding and stuff like that, and they get so caught up on that that they never try anything else. So
Yeah.
trial and error, I think, is a huge part of marketing and branding.
But I
Like,
think I think in life, I just think that there are so many people out there who they have their day job, and then they have these other things that they're really passionate about, and in some cases they're really good at, but they never explore. And for me, if anything, this period now, this is a chance. This is a chance to test. This is a chance to explore. If you are amazing at baking cakes, if you are amazing, maybe now is the time for you to actually take that skill and do something with it, and use social media to get that message out there. I
I
think this
think
presents as sad as the situation is, I do think it presents a massive opportunity for us.
I think a lot of people don't also give themselves enough credit for their capability to learn something. And because things can
Yeah.
be hard and overwhelming, they start it and then they panic and they don't learn it, right? I just, before we continue on, I just want to point out some really great resources because, as you said before, if things progress in a downhill manner in the world, people are going to have to upskill, right? They're going to have to learn new talents. They're going to have to take the skills they already have and build on them. And what I was going to say is that for me personally, I have four main resources that I go to for learning. I've got Scribd, which is the audiobook app that I'm obsessed with. I've got Skillshare, and then I've got podcasts and YouTube. Those. And then if you want to add a fifth, Google, really. But like between those, like everything that I do with cameras and graphic design and web design, I'm completely 100% self-taught while I was doing hair, right? So it's like, it's out there. You just have to have the interest and the want for it. That's another tricky thing, is that if people aren't interested in the digital, it's going to be a little tricky.
Yeah, I just think it's really important for people now. You kind of, you almost don't have a choice though now, Carver. You kind of have to do something. You have to, because if you don't, I think it's that whole thing of if you don't now try to be as agile and as flexible as possible, I think that you're just like, that's going to be very detrimental to you in the not too distant future.
Yeah, you're not doing yourself any favors.
No, you're really not doing yourself any favors. I think, especially if you feel there is a danger to your job or your business, you need to do something, and you need to do it as quickly as possible. And another thing as well that I think is really important is that people need to not worry about rejection. Like we were saying before, like you said before, in order to get something right, you have to get something wrong. And I think the reality of social media especially is that not every piece of content that you post is going to be successful. Something might get 150 likes or more or whatever, and then some things might get 10. I think you have to not worry about that rejection and just do it anyway, because that's just the nature of the platform. Some things will go down really well and some things will go down like a lead balloon. There's nothing you can do about that. But I do think that rejection is another part of it, and that you have to kind of really, really, it's just like the whole procrastination thing. You just have to get over it and do it. And if people don't like it,
can we please call it prejection? Like, where you don't post, and so you actually
write that down.
You think you're going to get rejected, right? So you don't post, but then you actualize the rejection, because you can't be rejected or approved, accepted, whatever, if you don't post. So I'm going to call that prejection from now on. You projected your prejection.
Yeah, so prejection, try and avoid it.
On that, speaking of content and making, why don't we talk a little bit about how people can make it quickly in their businesses? Because realistically, if we are moving towards another lockdown, not to be a Debbie Downer, but like, we don't really know how long we have left to showcase what we do in the day-to-day world, right? Like, if you're in the service industry and suddenly service gets shut down again, I've got these in my hands like little nunchucks, you're not going to be able to create the content that you're used to, right? So I think even if people just create a bunch of raw content right now, like content to be edited later, planned or whatever, edited later, but that fits to this mold right now, I think is really good. But as I was saying before, when I was full-time doing hair and everything, and I really wanted to start focusing on the web design and marketing and branding and all that stuff, I went in full tilt. I got I told Lisa I wasn't going to show these, but I will. So this was my first one that I had. That's just like a little DSLR. This was a great one. It's a Sony A5100. They've got the 6000 out now. And this camera was great because it takes high quality photos. You can do videos, all that stuff. And it has a selfie facing screen, which I'm obsessed with. Then I moved salons and decided I'm gonna do fancier videos. And so then I got this. This is the Panasonic GH4. This one has like the full interchangeable lenses, all that stuff. Again, you've got the selfie facing screen. High quality video, beautiful. Lots of editing, because then you also have to think about your audio and everything else. So what I realized is that this was actually adding a lot of time to my life. It was causing the procrastination stress to be even bigger, which then for me, if I get into procrastination, like if I get into that, I'm not getting out of that, right? So I decided that around that time, I was like, you know what, I got to figure out ways to do this with stuff that I can carry in a backpack. Realistically, I need to be able to just shove it in and go. Like, so most of us have one of these, right? We have a phone.
Yeah.
Most people think that you can only like point and shoot and whatever, but this, with a few little extra things, can go a long way. One of my favorite things for content creation that's quick is just a simple gimbal holder like this. And when you're ordering one of these or getting one of these, you want to make sure that you have a few things. They look the same, but they're not the same. So one thing I'd say, if you're getting into more creative work, you definitely want to have the soft shoe adapter. That's so you can get things like this and slide that in there. And then that sits on there, and you'll be able to have another thing that you can screw on there. So you could have multiple cameras, you could have a microphone and speaker, whatever. It depends what you're producing. This is also backwards. It faces this way. The other great thing, so I would say in one of these, your lighting, which we'll talk about in a sec, a good tripod that doesn't fall over, that also has the removable piece in it. And I know this seems like one tiny trivial little piece, but it is the most important piece of the entire tripod. What I love about this tripod in particular, it's got the easy release thing, so when a camera's on there, I can actually twist this out and it removes it from the camera rather than having to spin the camera. So you've got your tripod now. Actually, now that I've said that that's easy, we're going to do that this way. So the other thing on these things is that they've got these little screws. You might notice these on some of your cameras. You might notice them on your web camera. I can't show you my web camera one because it's underneath. But the great thing is that this can then screw into the bottom of that. And now you've got that, and this can connect directly to your tripod. So now you have somebody, this is backwards, but you get the gist. Now you have somebody that can shoot for you and stand behind you, and you've got your phone in here, and then you can self-film everything. And the other thing is, get yourself a tripod that can be short, but can also, come on, be really long. So these are called telescopic legs, and you want to make sure that you have this so you can adjust the height. This piece also, having a longer one of these is nice because you can extend this up even higher. You can also use this for your webcams, whatever you want. I also recommend if you want to do something more tabletop.
One thing I do have for my that came with my tripod was a remote control, because I use my phone to like make videos.
Yeah.
And that's just was a game changer for me.
Right?
Because before I'd be leaning forward to turn the video, to stop the video and start it. So that's just a game changer for me.
Then you have to edit the video minus the start. Yeah, I've got one here. So they often look like that. Just a little Bluetooth remote. This is a little shutter button that'll just actually, you're right, these are 100% great. If you have an Apple Watch, you can use your Apple Watch as a shutter starter if you're using iPhone. So they just look like that. You connect them to your Bluetooth. Put a little, these ones need a little like watch battery, I suppose. I don't know what you guys call them there. Watch battery, probably. And then, as Lisa said, those are great if you're, especially if you're starting away. The only thing I'll say is make sure you can see that you're recording, because sometimes you'll go to record and you're not recording.
Yes, like I've done that where I've hit the button to start recording and I'm like, hi, and I'm thinking, that's not recorded.
And then you were like, that was a really good one, yeah. And your camera and it's like recording, and you're like, son of a bitch. So these little tripod legs are great just on their own with the stands. You can also, I don't have it out right now, but if you have a monopod, you can often connect the monopod to this and make a singular tripod, which is really cool. And then this one is a little bit on the creative side, but honestly was such a favorite of mine, because often when you're working in a studio, and maybe not so much with distancing and all that now, but like when I was working in the salon, I wanted to film, but I didn't want to inconvenience everybody else, right? So what I did, I used to film on an iPad mini because it was just the camera I had. And they always say the best camera is the camera you've got. So this isn't going to work with my phone currently. Not that I can tell you where my phone is. It's in a case. There we go. But this is just one of those little car adapters, you know, for holding your cell phone. And it's got the little suction switch, which I love this. And you can flip that down and then suction it to the wall. And so what I had was I actually have the case. I gave the iPad mini to my sister, but so this case has a metal plate on it, and then sticks to that, right? Imagine your iPad being in here. And so what I used to do in the salon was I would time lapse myself doing the service, and then I would just stick this to the mirror. Where are we going? Here. So say we want it that way. Actually, I'll just show you here. So you just press it up against the wall, and then now my camera sticks to the wall, right? So this allowed me to do things like getting angles from higher up that looked really flattering on the client. It allowed me to, if you want something on the back wall and you want to just show everything, or maybe a side angle. But having small little gadgets, and these, most of these are under $25, $18, like they're not expensive tools. This one, as weird as it seems, probably my most useful, also because you get something like this, right? The one that I just, so lovingly broke. And it has metal in it. This has earth magnets. So then you can clip your camera, screwed in, any camera, to that as long as it's not too heavy. So that being said, I'm going to let Lisa take over on some points. I'm going to disappear for a couple seconds and mute my microphone. I'm actually probably going to run away for a few seconds. And then when I come back, I'll have a setup and we're going to do some content examples on how to capture quickly for you guys. Lisa, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, so back to strategy. So for me, I've already been through a few things. The first one being procrastination and that whole fear around posting. And my advice is the same as Nike's, just do it. We don't really have the luxury of procrastinating and worrying too much at the moment about content creation. We just have to kind of put ourselves out there and do it. In terms of that age-old thing that so many people say to me about not knowing what to talk about, I think right now it's important to have a rough idea of what you're going to talk about. I don't think that, realistically speaking, with the way that things are going and things are changing on an hourly, daily basis, you can have that in-depth a strategy. But you should still have some semblance of a strategy. So you should still have some idea of what you're going to talk about. But then you need to be willing and open to testing different things. Because as I said before, ultimately all of social media is a test. Nobody knows how a piece of content is going to perform until they put it out there. So that would be the next point. And then the whole thing about rejection, like I said, the reality is not every piece of content that you're going to post is going to get a fantastic reception. It just isn't. That's just the nature of social media. So don't get too hung up on the whole rejection or prejection, as Carver named it. The next thing I wanted to say was kind of the whole idea of trolls and, people who are out there who are just negative for negative sake. They're very brave behind a smartphone or a laptop. Try really hard to separate yourself from that, because I think, what I have seen with some people is they do get trolled. They do get people, unfortunately, leaving unpleasant comments and things like that. And it really affects their confidence in terms of posting, in terms of sharing their stories and their content. Try really hard to separate yourself from that. Unfortunately, there are people out there who are going to do stuff like that. You just have to try really hard to ignore it, rise above it, and just keep on doing what you're doing. Easier said than done, but it's definitely, I think, in the current climate where we all need to do whatever we can to survive, I think the best thing you can do when it comes to trolls is not to feed them your energy. Just ignore them, block them, report them, do what you need to do, and just carry on with what you're doing. The next thing is discipline. Now, the reason why I've included this in the list in terms of content with confidence is, the reality is we don't always want to post. We don't, I don't necessarily want to post every single day. I don't necessarily, I probably sometimes want to go like a week without posting. I've had to learn to discipline myself to post frequently and consistently. We're all in those situations where we sometimes don't want to do stuff. But I think, again, in this current survival kind of climate that we're in, you have to have the discipline to be consistent with your content. And that's not necessarily meaning you need to post every day, 3 times a day, but you need to post frequently and consistently. And discipline is very, very important. If you don't discipline yourself to do that, ultimately the only person who's going to suffer is you. So discipline is another key factor. One other really, really important thing when it comes to content with confidence and also creating content, the ability to create content quickly, is seeing every opportunity or seeing every situation that you find yourself in as an opportunity to create content. Now, what I mean by that is, I'll use myself as an example. So something that I do most days, because I work from home mainly now, is I go out for walks. So to get myself out of the house, to get myself some fresh air, I take myself out for a walk, sometimes half an hour, sometimes an hour, depending on my workload. But I do that. I try to do that on a daily basis. And one of the things that I always do is, obviously, I always have my phone with me, and I take pictures. I gather like thoughts and ideas. I look around. I really take the time to kind of take in the scenery around me and the environment. An example being today, I was outside. I went out for a walk, and what I actually did, which might sound a bit weird, but bear with me, was I pointed my phone up to the sky, and I did little 15-second clips just of blue sky, of clouds moving. I did some with like trees kind of swaying in the wind. And the reason I did that was because that will make a good background for a piece of content. So you might not necessarily think about those kind of things, but that's what you need to do. You need to train yourself to see every scenario that you find yourself in as a potential for creating content. So like I said, I just grabbed videos, videos of the sky, like say the clouds moving and stuff like that, because I thought, you know what, that background will be great for the right piece of content. Now, I may not use those videos I gathered today for a week, a month, 3 months, maybe even a year, but at some stage I know that will come in handy. So yes, whenever you are out and about, I would say make sure you are looking around you, you are taking in everything around you, because there is content, there is the potential to create content in 99.9 situations. Like literally 99 out of 100 times, there will always be opportunities for you to create content. What you really need to do is train yourself and train your eyes to see them. And also make sure that you put your phone down. We're all guilty of walking around like this, just looking at our phones. If you really want to be as creative as possible with your content, you need to spend time being offline. Now, this is something that I actually work into my my weekly routine, my weekly work routine. I give myself about an hour every day where I'm not on my phone, and I'm literally just taking in the environment around me as a means of inspiring my creativity when it comes to content. So yeah, I think one thing in terms of being able to create content quickly, especially in the current climate, is to be looking at every situation that you find yourself in as an opportunity to create content. That's a really key one. So make sure you are doing that. Consistency, which I've already touched on. Consistency is so important, and by consistency I don't mean that you necessarily have to be posting every single day. I do believe that you have to post frequently, but I don't necessarily mean you have to post every single day. You have to be consistent in terms of your message, what it is you're communicating. You have to be consistent in terms of the value you're offering. You have to be consistent in terms of your brand values, your kind of messaging and what you want to say to people. So you have to be consistent in those things. Consistency is key to success in social media. I mean, it's key to most things, but especially in social media, you need to always be consistent. You need to be consistent. You need to be creative. You need to be disciplined. So that's something that's very, very important. Another thing as well that I wanted to touch on was creating content for the lifestyles that people live. Now, what I mean by that is, for example, say I've got a microphone here, and obviously you can't see it's out of shot at the moment, but if I was wanting to promote this microphone, I wouldn't just take a picture of it against like a nice coloured background like this. What I would do is I would probably capture a video of myself talking, using the microphone, or putting it in a situation where it is being used by someone. So, because the idea being that if somebody then sees that content and happens to be looking for a microphone, they're like, oh, they can see the product being used, they can see how effective it is for me. So that's more likely to kind of hopefully drive them to want to purchase that item. So I think it's really important that when you are creating content, be it for a product or a service, you are actually creating it for the lifestyles that people live, and not just putting it against a really nice background and taking a picture of it or capturing like a boomerang of it, you know, put it in a situation that people are likely to use it in. And I think that's going to drive people more to want to make a purchase. So that's another thing. And they're my key points, really. The one I want to drive home again is the whole procrastination piece. Please, please, please do not let procrastination or fear of posting stop you from posting. I have lost count of the amount of times I have had pieces of content, and I still do. I have so many pieces of content on my phone that I have not posted, and it's not because they're not good enough. It's because, to be perfectly frank, I've been scared to post them. And like Carver and I both said before, in this current climate, you know, we are not afforded the luxury of fear. We are not afforded the luxury of procrastination. We need to get ourselves out there. You know, a lot of us are needing to pivot in terms of our careers, in terms of what we're going to do next, in terms of, you know, where our next paycheck is going to come from. So if social media is something that's going to help you kind of get yourself out there, it's going to help you turn your side hustle into a main hustle, you really, really need to just kind of get past that procrastination and that fear and just do it. I think that's, for me, is the biggest thing. That's the thing that has held me back a lot over the years and still does sometimes. I really have to kind of push myself to kind of get beyond it and just post. But I think the biggest thing for me is that whole procrastination piece. Don't let the fear of posting stop you from posting. And Carver is back with the same microphone as mine, but a different colour.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I've just switched cameras quickly so that I can start by showing you guys a little bit about ring lights. So ring lights, we all know, everybody has them, everybody loves them.
Yep.
If you don't, I highly recommend finding one that you can invest in. If you're going to be doing a lot of regular content, of course, there's no need to have one if you're not.
Oh, there is, if you want to take selfies.
You take great selfies. A good size is an 18-inch because, as you can see here, you want to be able to fit your arms through it, fit your hand through it, fit a camera in it, to be honest, because some of them, the 14-inch ones, are only about this big, and they can actually make it quite difficult. And what ends up happening is, rather than having a soft halo of light, you end up with really direct light in one spot. So you'll have shadow at the top and shadow at the bottom. So you want to make sure you're getting the right size. Second point, and this is why I'm out of breath, because I just ran down the house to go get this. I was like, oh no, I need my example light. So this is my old ring light. Let me just pull it apart here. I don't hate this style, but I don't love this style. So this is LED, where the light softening case pops on, right? This is an older model, obviously. So it clips on, and there's 4 pieces. This light without the soft case is really, really harsh, like really, really bright. You're gonna, if you have a model or a person in front of you, you're gonna blind them, realistically. So that one I liked. It was my good starter one. Didn't love it. This one, this case is permanent, so you don't. I really like this because there's no fussing around with it. The LED lights are in. You do want to make sure you have LED because some are still halo bulbs and like are actual like bulbs inside here, and these fall over. You're not going to break an LED. If you drop one with the halo bulb, you're going to have to get a new halo bulb. So that ain't cute. Some other points while we're standing here. I love this one because this one has adjustable, you can adjust the brightness, obviously. It does have compartments in the back where you can purchase batteries and take this for traveling shoots and stuff like that. But you can also control the temperature of your lighting. It's not the best example here, but I'll switch cameras and show you. So you can really see here the color change. My hand's a little bit more warmy, kind of goldy color here, compared to the ice whiteness of this. And personally, I find this really good if you have to balance a skin tone, or, you know, sometimes your hair color or whatever might not be quite what you say it is. Anybody who does hair that's watching this right now is probably getting a good laugh out of that. Anyways, what I wanted to show you guys was a little bit of tips just on how to shoot in front of it. And I have my lovely, handy, dandy unicorn friend here. So he's going to be our model. And since I've put this on a tripod, I bet you I can get this a bit closer. So I've put my webcam on a tripod. The reason I took so long is because I was having a little bit of a malfunction. Let's put this here. There. So now we can see what we're doing. All right. So as I said before, the best camera is the camera you've got. Most of us have our phone around in our pocket. Just flip on your camera. And if you're taking a photo, obviously photos are pretty simple. I'm self-facing here, right? You just can walk up, take a photo, maybe try some different angles. Try not to get your arms in front of the light too much because you will cause shadows. But the big one when it comes to content creation, we all know that pictures aren't keeping people's attention anymore. So we really want to be focusing on videos. So switch over to your video. And what I usually recommend having your subject stationary and then moving around them to show off the different parts. It really depends what you're showing as to how your video goes, but for day-to-day content creation, I find the two things that work really, really effectively is time lapse to show process really quickly because people are interested in how you do it, right? And then also just video to show off the finished product. So when we're taking our techniques, I usually like to go through the light again, trying to avoid causing unneeded shadows. And I'll usually start at a bit of an angle. It's kind of like, again, this is an example that only some people are going to get, but when you're curling hair with a flat iron, you want to overextend your wrist so you can actually make it the whole way, either way. So I like to start and give myself a little somewhere to go. I'm going to try to yell so I can actually be heard. I realize I'm probably really quiet. Sorry, guys. So we're going to start this video. We're just going to slowly move back and forth, bit of an S shape, trying to keep our subject. That was a bad video, Carver. Okay, I'm going to sit and do this. Trying to keep our subject in the center of it, but also adding a little bit of excitement. So then we'll take a few just so we have some content to work with. Focus in on different areas, you know, in this case, got a really nice gold horn. We're going to make sure we feature that. So after you've got a little bit of content here, you've got some raw material to work with. Now, we'll switch this around. Okay, I'm going to disappear for 2 seconds.
Okay, so Carver's gone, so I'm going to do a little bit of talking in his absence. So for me, in terms of quick content creation, one of the things that I use is an app that Carver introduced me to, which is called Canva. And Carver's actually done some courses on this, so we'll make sure that we include some links and stuff to that. But Canva is such a great tool. If you are not somebody like me who is a graphic designer, I studied graphic design at uni, but I'm definitely no graphic designer. It's a great tool for creating content that has a consistent look and feel, and it looks polished, and it looks great. So I use that. If you look at my account, which is the Social Word blog, I actually use that to create my posts that I share. And like I say, it just makes that whole idea of pocket content creation just that much quicker, that much easier, and it looks polished. I'm not saying that your content should look as perfect as possible, but I do think presentation is important. Don't just throw anything out there. But I think Canva is a great tool for kind of creating content with a consistent look and feel, and it gives you a variety. You literally have hundreds of templates for Instagram, for Twitter, for Facebook, for everything. It even has templates for things like presentations, websites. There's just so much on there. It's such a great app to use, and it's not that difficult to use. Like, I'm not the best, Carver will tell you, with this kind of stuff, but if I can use Canva, then everybody can. So that's another tip, is that Canva is a great tool. But Carver did a course on it a few months ago. Yeah, I'm okay with it, but I'm not as good. Like, I can't do what you do, just sit there with a camera on you and then just rustle up a video in like 3 seconds. Like, that would take me about 6 months.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, you do.
Okay, guys, so I am back. We've got some Everything's downloading. Perfect. So I'm going to do a screen share from my iPad. I've just airdropped the photos and videos from my phone to my iPad. Now, obviously, you don't need to do that step. I'm just doing that for the convenience of this. And we've tried this a few times, and we're going to see if it's actually going to do what I want, because sometimes I press the wrong buttons. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about Video Leap. As far as creating video content, I know that a lot of people get really overwhelmed with it. There can be a lot going on when it comes to video, you know, a lot of in and out that we don't know a lot about. The nice thing with Video Leap is that it really allows for you to create. It's similar. I won't say it's like Canva, because it's not like Canva at all, but it's simple like Canva, if that makes sense. All the buttons are really easy to find. They're all at the bottom here, right? The phone app is very, very similar to this. So what we're going to do, we're going to start by adding some media. So we've got photos and videos here galore. So we've got our little video. Now this, obviously, if I play it, it's going to play with sound. So after you've got a little bit of content here... Is that what my voice sounds like?
I hate hearing my voice, like, hi guys! Like, oh.
Hi guys! Oh my gosh! I'm just glad I was able to be heard. That's fine. Alright, so, that being said, first thing we're going to do, let's go back here. I've uploaded this. Now I'm going to select it just by tapping it. You can move just with your finger. Down here at the bottom, now that I've selected this, I'm going to hit audio, and I'm just going to hit mute, because I for sure do not want to hear my voice. So there. Now we have a nice silent video. Now, usually I like to add a little bit of audio just to keep it entertaining. Nope, that was the wrong button. So you want to unselect your video, and then down at the bottom hit audio, and then this app has some built-in sound effects, loops, music, all that sort of stuff. Personally, I keep all my music on Dropbox in my files. Let's just use a fun song that we all know. We're gonna delete this really silent intro, because we don't really need that, and our video is only about 12 seconds, if that. So now, and then actually, you know what? We're going to add a filter. When you add a filter in this app, you just, again, down at the bottom where you found audio, when you have everything unselected, I usually like to have my header right at the start for this so that it makes it for the whole video. Just hit filters right there at the bottom. And then once you hit filters, it'll put a filter in here automatically. On the bottom left here, you have presets, and then you can actually change your filter to whatever you like. So let's say we like this filter, but it's a little too intense for us, so we're just going to bring that down a little bit. And now we're at about 50%. So now you've got a little piece of content, right? What I will say, you want to make sure, and I've done this a lot, where you'll export it with the full song. You want to make sure that you just go to the end and you just tap these little things, because you can cycle through them just by tapping the little icon above the thing. Just press split and then tap the second section, again using these little, I don't know what to call them, icons, I guess. And then just press remove, and then now you're clipped. Now, this is great. We recorded it in Story. We're going to post it as a story. It's great. But if we wanted to post it as an Instagram post, it's got to be a 1:1 ratio rather than a 1080 by 1920 or whatever it is. So what we want to do is, just in the bottom left-hand corner of the app here, you have a button called Canvas. You can change the color of your background here, but you can also format the size. So right now we're in 9:16. You can do the 3:4 for Instagram posts if you want something a little bit bigger, but 1:1 is the kind of classic. So now that we can see that on the either side of our video, now we have these black bars, and that's showing us our canvas, right? So now we have a 9:16 shot piece of content in between these two things. So what we want to do, just tap that and just use our fingers to expand. And I usually like to kind of guess where it's going to be placed, kind of deal. Or not guess, I shouldn't say. But like, I like to start a spot that looks good in the video, if that makes sense, because sometimes if your subject's here and you expand, they'll be moved over here, and that's not really useful. So now we've got a piece. Play that in full screen. Right, like here, where it goes to the bottom. I don't really like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shift it up so it ends showing off the unicorn. So now we've got a little bit more space up here, but I'd rather dead space at the start of the video when we're going to be moving and bring the subject into focus. Why is that sound not playing now? There we go. Scared me. So we get the gist. So then what we do after that, we'll just hit export, and then you can select your resolution. So 720, your resolution is just kind of middle of the road. It's good for social media, blah, blah, blah. I often will do the 1080p just because I find that Instagram and social media, TikTok, whatever, Facebook, tends to degrade the quality of the video. So I'll usually up the quality when I'm saving so that when I upload, I'm accounting for the degradation of the quality. That made sense, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. And now we've saved it, so that's saved to the iPad. I'm going to do one more quick example while I got you all here, because where are you going to go? And that's in Snapseed. We haven't actually featured this before.
I love Snapseed. Oh,
isn't it amazing?
God, I love Snapseed so much.
So Snapseed, I have two favorite apps when it comes to my photo editing, and it's really quick and easy, and that's Snapseed and Facetune. And I know that everybody's like, oh, Facetune, like people just use it for selfie editing, but if you actually use it for content editing, it's a brilliant tool. So, yes, you can access my photos, you creep. Okay, so let's use this one. So first things first, down at the bottom you've got a really great set of tools here. So we're going to start by cropping the image just a bit. This is free crop. Bring that in, bring that over, and you're just grabbing these little corner tabs and just bringing them up. Don't cut off his snout. Nope, that's my iPad. Come here. Come here. Great. Trimmed. Now, I'm going to just show you some of my favorite tools because there's obviously a lot to go through. Selective. Selective is probably my #1 go-to tool. You can select an area. You can expand the area. All this redness is going to show you what area of the photo it's going to affect. I see you making notes, Lisa.
Yeah.
You can, so this is going to affect, I just want to affect mostly just the dark area of the horse, right? So it's going to kind of pick up on whatever shade you've put it on. So if you put it on white, it's going to mostly pick up on the white area. It's very intuitive that way. And again, you can shrink it down so you're only focusing on that, say, one corner. And I do this a lot for, I did this a lot for hair photos in the background. You just edit the brightness just slightly just to bring it up. And then you can add another point, again, expand it out, and just brighten that up just ever so slightly to create some contrast. Now with the dark, again, it's going to focus on the dark, and you can slide in the other way, right? Now, another great thing about the selection tool is a lot of people only know that this works for brightness and darkness, but it actually has a bunch of other features. If you actually tap, how do I do it though? I haven't used this in a while. That's how it is. So just scrolling up and down, you actually bring up a, judging by Lisa's face, she didn't know about this either.
No.
So you can actually increase and decrease. So now that brightness on this point is set. So that's not going anywhere. You can see that it hasn't altered, but now when I move right and left, I can change the contrast of the image, just the selected area, right? So it's not affecting the stuff in the background, it's just affecting the contrast on the actual object. So we'll darken that, and then we'll just scroll up. Saturation is a pretty obvious one. I mean, it's hard to show you on black, but if this was a color item, maybe we can show, oh no. Right, so if you move the dot, everything that you've altered with this dot is going to be moved with it. So make sure that if you're focusing on an area, that dot stays in that area. If you want to add a new dot, press add. So I just learned that the quick way. So saturation again, we're only, even if I expand this fully, the app only allows for it to go on the colors that it's familiar with. right? So it's actually really quite smart that it does that. So let's make this real golden by upping the saturation. And then you can also alter the structure, which is really just the sharpness of the object. So you can see right away that that object pops a lot more. But because we aren't altering the structure of the horn, now the horn looks out of focus, right? So details, again, another one that you can do. All the settings in Snapseed, you change by going up and down. Most of them have multiple settings. So we'll just cancel out of that. I'm going to press export, but what I'm going to do is normally I could just click export down at the bottom. I don't know why I keep showing people my iPad in real life when it's on the screen. I am just hurting my back. Okay, so anyways, we just normally would hit export down at the bottom here on the right, but instead I'm going to press open in because I'm going to move this to another app. So I want to open this in Facetune. So what I've done here, I'm going to just start that again. So I've hit export, and rather than exporting it or saving a copy or saving, if you press save, it'll change it on your iOS, but if you just press export, it'll make a new version. I'm pressing open in, and then I'm just scrolling over to the end through all these apps at the top. You can obviously you can load it right into Canva and all that stuff, but I'm going to hit more, and it's going to open up my other available apps. I'm going to hit copy to Facetune. Now, so because it's an iPhone app on iPad, it's a little bit sized, but so I would say my 3 favorite things on Facetune are 3 of the first 4, which are the whiten, the smooth, and the details. Whiten, people, it's you can zoom in and you can whiten teeth and all that stuff. Great feature for that because it whitens teeth brilliantly, but I often use it because like when we photograph something, there's often decoloration. So like this, for instance, I like to use it on things like the background. And you don't want to overdo it because like you can really tell, but if you're on a white wall and you want the background to be like really white, but it came out a bit yellow, you can whiten it. So as you can see in that corner now, it's brighter. You got to scribble over it repeatedly to get it to do it. But you can outline. And if this was on an all-white wall, this would really, really pop, right? So now you can start to see how I'm creating more of that. And also you can, of course, then go and erase it if you overdo it, which I've done. So we're going to cancel the whitening. Smoothing, I use this a lot for people's like foreheads, their cheeks, and their chins. But I don't smooth too close to their features because I find that it really washes people out and people can see that over smoothness, right? Best tip I ever received for this though, I'll tell you something. You can smooth and just smooth out some of these, like this for instance. You can really see the smoothing effect that this is taking on that little bit of light shine or whatever. If I actually go over, there's also a smoother option if you really got some work to do. But I usually will smooth out some of their features, just the stuff that's unwanted, but then I'll use details. And if you're shooting somebody's face, you want to kind of focus on the things that you're trying to bring focus to, right? So I'll hit details, thank you, and I'll go over their eye or their eyebrow or like bit of their ear, or like in this case the horn, right? And we can just draw the eye to certain parts using details, because what it does is it just sharpens something and brings the attention to that area. So that's really great for like if you're doing hair, for instance, it's like a bit of hair, or again the features. With guys, sometimes if I've smoothed them here but I don't want it to look too much like makeup, I'll use details on their stubble just a little bit to kind of contrast the two, so it still feels, you know, masculine and rugged without it washing them out completely. I don't use details on facial hair for women. So, Lisa. What?
Facial hair for women. I heard that.
You heard that, did you?
Yeah,
All right.
I heard that.
So again, with this, once you're done, you're just going to hit that little arrow out in the corner and you're going to save to camera roll. I think as far as quick content creation, Snapseed, Facetune, and Video Leap are probably my go-tos. But that was all the little tips I got for you today, guys. Little equipment, little how-to on some apps. Lisa, do we have anything else to throw at them? Include?
Gosh, I think that's everything for me. I've been through all of my notes. I've reiterated the whole point about procrastination, posting.
No projecting.
No, no projecting. So yeah, I think I've been through everything on my list. Right, what else can I say? I think the thing is for me is just that whole thing about reiterating. Really think about your additional skill set and how that can be supported from a digital perspective, whether it's social media, whether it's a website, whether it's anything like that, it's an online shop. I think really right now, for me personally, and people might disagree with this, I think digital is the future, is the way forward. So I think really people need to be thinking about what their skill sets are and how digital can help them get that message out. I think that's really, really important because, like I say, we don't know what's coming tomorrow. We literally do not know. We know that we're in for a bit of a rough ride and it's kind of just started. It hasn't really hit us all yet. So if you have skills and, social media and digital communications can help to enhance that and spread that message, really start to think about that now, really start to think about what your messaging looks like. And yeah, like we were saying, don't spend too much time. We don't have the luxury of time in the same way that we used to. Time always goes quickly, but I think in the current climate, it's going even more quickly than it usually does. So really think about, really take on board the tips that we've shared today. Carver's content creation tips, that whole pocket content creation piece is really, really important right now because we are not going to have time. I don't have time to sit here and think about, right, okay, I've got time to create content for the next month. I actually don't at the moment. The content needs to be quick. It needs to be correct. It needs to be impactful. It needs to be valuable. It really does need to be valuable. And I think that's another thing as well, is that don't waste your followers' time. Don't waste your consumers' time. Make sure that what you're putting out and what you're sharing is as valuable as it can possibly be. Because as I said before, we just don't have the luxury of time at the moment. But yeah, I think that digital is the way forward. So I think you really need to think about what skills you have and how that translates from a digital perspective. So that's kind of it from me. What about you, Carver? Have you got any additional points?
I really liked that point that you just made, to not waste your consumer's time or to waste the person that's looking, because we may all end up at home again, but just because we're at home doesn't mean we have the mental time to waste on vapid content, which is really what it is, right? We got to this place pre-pandemic where everybody was just watching each other talk about themselves but not actually providing any value. And I think the quicker that we learn how to provide value and share what we know and share, people are going to Instagram now to learn. They're not going there to, the ad things already happen. If you want entertainment, you go to TikTok. But if you want education, you go, there's places to go on Instagram and stuff like that. But I think it's really important that at the end of the day, we remember that there's people on the other side of this. Right? If you're putting it out, you're expecting somebody to read it. Make sure it's actually worthwhile to them. Yeah. Right? And that's it. That's it for me.
We're having to spend enough time figuring out all the guidelines.
Life.
Figuring out government guidelines and what you can do and what you can't do and where you can go and where you can't go and what time you can stay out till.
And if they change it tomorrow.
Which they probably will. So the thing is, just we have enough to focus on at the moment. There is so, literally, it's an information onslaught at this moment in time. And so for me, I think it's really important that you come up with agile ways, or you use agility wherever possible to create your content and share your message. But yeah, like I said, don't waste people's time, because that's really not something that any of us should be doing at the moment. Time is too valuable. So we need to make sure we invest it wisely in terms of what we consume and what we create.
I agree.
And that's it from me.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time. As we are talking about value, we hope that this brought you some. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the class, watch us chat. watch our examples, and we really do hope that it brought you guys some sort of value and that you're able to use it to better your careers, your businesses, your brands, and your future. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, guys. And if you need any help, obviously, you know where we are. You can find us on Instagram,
We're a DM
Facebook,
away.
LinkedIn, DM us. You can find us. So
We have a website.
Yeah, we
You
have
can
it all.
contact us.
Yeah, www.thebrandingbrainstorm.com. So if you need anything, you know where we are.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.